Welcome to Something to Talk About. Thank you for joining us at the table. We've already half-eaten food and we've got fruit, and I think there's other food that might be coming, but we're happy with our friends from King's Restaurant. Thanks for hosting us once again for Something to Talk About. And we're going to talk about something that I know nothing about, and it is Toastmasters. I've heard of them. I never really knew. I kind of confused them with the Teamsters Union a couple times, but Toastmasters International is a global, obviously international civic organization.
Absolutely.
Guam has a chapter. And so Adonis Mendiola, that you very well know, I'm sure. I've just met an interesting man with a really cool last name. James Pashon is his name.
Said it really well.
I know
Nice.
it. Well, you know, I mean, it's passion. I just figure you should have like a beard and, stay thirsty, my friends.
People have said
That
to
guy.
use the last name in that way, but
Yeah, as a passionate guy.
Here come the memes.
Yeah.
it's
Oh, I
graceful.
appreciate you guys coming here, and I'm just in the short time that we've been sitting here. I'm recognizing that Toastmasters.
Toastmasters.
Now, let me ask you: is it called Toastmasters because you're masters of delivering a toast? Was that the origins of the?
Well, it's not exactly the origins, but there is, just this gimmick of, when you have to give a toast at, for example, a wedding.
Yeah.
And, sometimes people freeze or they just have a very awkward kind of speech going on. And yet, when you give a toast, it's public speaking at its finest.
Yeah.
Right? And so there's that gimmick around that. But really, it started with around the 1900s with someone just wanting to gather a group of people who
Were
wanted
they
to
mostly
learn.
men?
At the time, yes.
In
mostly men.
1800s, they didn't have a lot of
Well, in the
female.
1900s.
Oh, 1900s.
Yeah.
Well, even still,
Yeah.
they didn't have a lot of females that came
Well, that was
knocking it.
back then.
Well, what
Things
were
have
they doing?
changed.
Were they sitting at the local pub? Was
They
this
just-
an American
It wasn't actually
thing?
a pub per se. It was definitely a meeting room, but it was just a gathering of those who were employed
Okay.
and just wanting to kind of better their public speaking together and
All
their
right.
leadership skills.
Okay.
So it just started very raw.
Mm-hmm.
And from then it blossomed into this very worldwide organization.
So what do you got? You have like a secret handshake, either like a fez cap, or
Interesting.
I mean, what?
Well,
We have-
to use a millennial
Yeah.
term, and not to say that they've coined it, but it has been in our time. It's a safe space to not feel judged. So
Okay.
nobody walks into a meeting expecting to be judged, as in we're not there at a table, although we do have tables, suited in something, and although we have a gavel,
Yeah.
using the gavel to rule you, up or down
Yeah.
on an issue. It's to help you to see that it's a place where you can hone your skills. People don't know this at first, but as soon as they walk in, they will feel the energy. They will know why we're there, like they'll know why they're there and why they will come back.
Is it dictated by the type of work you do that you want to refine maybe your leadership skills, or or is it because your personality is more of an introvert and you want to learn how to better communicate?
It's a mix of both, actually. I'm glad you kind of pointed those out. On one token, it's trying to refine my speaking skills outside of doing like PowerPoint presentations.
So what do you do for a living?
So I do actually a medley of things. So IT on one side, web design on the other, and doing trainings at VOG on
Okay.
the other side.
So it's the training where you have that sort of interpersonal communication.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the part where you thought, well, IT and web designing is a very
That's a very
quiet.
introvert kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Do it on
exactly.
your
Well,
own.
that's what sitting in a
Yeah.
dark. I know Tony Watley, and he's kind of weird that way. I'm kidding. That's our producer. I'm just joking with him. But yeah, I mean, that is sort of something that you do on your own, that you don't need a
Right.
lot. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's funny because before Toastmasters, I was I guess well known as a behind the scenes,
Yeah.
Never really show myself in public kind of person. But when you get too comfortable in something, it's a sign that you have to change something.
A rut, a routine.
Yeah, so it's like this kind of inner thing. Okay, you gotta maybe change it up, get out of your comfort zone.
So that's interesting. I'm going to go with
Yes.
this right now because
Do it.
Yes.
I know you, Adonis.
We're on the
and
same wavelength.
This is like
This is
this is
his
totally
territory.
opposite of who you
You've got
are.
two extroverts
This poor guy.
with an introvert in
Well,
the middle.
I'm working my way
Well,
up.
He's
you're,
working his
you're
way out of it, and
actually-
it's not
I
a bad
could tell
thing.
that.
Right,
I
it's
could
not a
tell
bad
that
thing.
sitting here there was like a different kind of energy that you were really trying to assert, and I could pick
You
up on
felt
that.
it, right?
I did.
Your intuition. It's intuition.
I
bro.
know. I feel like I'm like we should be on a couch somewhere, laying down,
sort of
talking
couch.
about our problems. But I mean, and it's not to dissect your
No, no, no,
personality
no.
whatsoever. But what was it something that you? I mean, have you always sort of been that way as a child growing up, behind the scenes, like you didn't want you wanted to disappear
it
when the
just-
family came over for dinner?
Oh, I mean, not that specific, but it's more of like I pretty much excelled at just making things happen behind the scenes, and I enjoyed that part. Where an event would happen and no one knew it was my doing behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could feel personal satisfaction from just having that happen
Right.
and not taking credit for it. That was
Okay.
my thing.
But when you were doing PowerPoint presentations for training, then you
Yeah.
must have recognized that there's something that you are, because PowerPoint,
They call it death by
Death by
PowerPoint,
they
right?
do.
Yes, you
they
can
call
kill
it death
people
by,
with the PowerPoint.
No, honestly,
You can.
I'm like this.
Kill them of boredom.
Yeah.
Unless you're a great facilitator or an animated presenter, right?
Yeah, well,
so
that's
is
the
that what
thing,
you were doing?
Because all of us have done presentations or
Yeah.
even sat through some, and sometimes I just see the audience like get out of their consciousness and go
Yeah.
somewhere else, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you know
Yeah.
how bad a speaker you are
Yeah.
if this comes out sooner.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
as a speaker, you can see more of that than them. Like you
Yeah.
can see phones go up, you can see their heads go down. and
Oh,
you
that's
can see
got to
them
be
use their
hell.
hands.
I mean,
Right.
that's got to be
I mean,
hell.
you're in radio, and all
Well,
due
I
respect.
speak in a padded room by myself
Correct.
for 4 hours, so
Hello.
so
fourth
there's
wall.
there's a degree of crazy
These
there
are
anyway.
soundproofed walls.
Yeah,
padded.
but no, exactly. I'm sitting in a padded room and talk to myself for 4 hours. But when I will tell you that when you get into an audience, I
Ooh.
still have that moment in front of a podium and there's a microphone, and then
And
I
it-
see the worst part is if you just see lights and you don't see faces.
There you go.
So then you're
And-
guessing what the audience is receiving.
And we were just joking about the lights earlier,
course.
right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I wanted to share. Toastmasters isn't for the introvert. It isn't for the extrovert. It isn't for the ambivert, and that's a good representation of what we have
Ambivert.
here.
Pretty much canceled
Yeah,
everything.
I'm kind of an
It's for
ambivert.
everyone.
So
What does that mean? I've never even heard that word.
it's like if you're ambidextrous,
Oh, okay.
So,
you could be both.
I can be both
Oh, yeah. Can't
introverted
we
and
all kind of
extroverted.
be?
Yes,
well-
and that's the medium. That's the
Yeah.
medium that Toastmasters allows, because we last night I brought this up. I said you can tell who the introverts and introverts and extroverts are in the crowd right away.
Mhm.
And as Toastmaster, and I've had the privilege of being
it twice.
Toastmaster twice
Mhm.
and in a row, I vibe off of that. And so as a Toastmaster, as a mom, as a dad, as an organizational leader,
Yeah.
you're able to feel that out
I
and
see.
use people at the maximum,
Mhm.
and maybe even push them through some envelopes
Absolutely.
in the best channels and routes, so that they're comfortable and, more importantly, very fluid in
So
that
I
element.
want to ask you, now that you have come upon this, there's also some introspection, right?
Yeah.
So you have to like sort of criticize yourself or see what your weaknesses and your
Yeah.
strengths are, right? So when you were realizing that you were the guy that did not mind not getting the praise for something that everybody was praising, and you were the background, are you now the guy who's like, yo,
Not
that was all
extreme.
me.
No,
That was me.
No,
I don't think it's even. my
No, not
even
personality
that,
at
okay.
all. It's
So
just-
there's no training for
it's-
you
it's
to
still
bust.
there. It's just like
Yeah.
I'm trying to challenge myself. This path
I think
of
that it's so
self-discovery and
cool.
personal development.
Yeah.
Just seeing what I can do out there aside from just sticking behind the scenes.
So I can see where it works in leadership positions. If you're a boss, for example, and you have to better communicate with your employees or better communicate. Is that kind of what we're talking about?
Well, earlier in your role, you talked about how the audience can throw off a script you've got, an agenda.
Yeah.
And so what you, as a leader, you want to be almost obsessed with how your audience will perceive what you're presenting. And so there's a great fear. I would be remiss if I didn't say, are there better days for Patio Arroyo and worse days as far as making the show work, making the audience, absent the faces because of the lights, making the audience respond, making the audience latch on. It's a great fear that a lot of people have to conquer, even an extrovert as yourself. But have you had that
Bad days?
those moments?
Wow.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Were you listening this morning?
Yeah.
No. Every day has a degree of terror
Yes.
because you come in with an agenda. You come in with a 1,000 topics that you
prepared
can
speech.
throw things out.
Sure,
And
yeah.
you'll hear me say this every once in a while. We threw about 5 things out, and we've latched onto one. And I can do, let's talk about, government and overspending, and then no phone calls. And then you go, what was that bump on the road on Marine Corps Drive, and why hasn't that been fixed?
And the show goes.
Boom. People, because everybody can relate to a pothole,
Right.
So it's that. Listen, we're going to take a real quick break, and when we come back, I really want to know what your meetings are like.
Great.
No, I think it's
You've gotta be
probably
there. You've
all right,
gotta be there.
vibrant. It sounds like it's
Yes.
vibrant.
Talk
All right,
about it.
that's my kind of meeting.
Yeah.
All right, we're meeting, and we're going to take a break. We'll eat some food. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking with the Toastmasters. I have learned more in the last 11 minutes than I pretty much learned all day on the radio this morning.
Quite a-
It's because this is not a familiar topic to me, yet it's everything I know,
Nice.
right? Like
Your Chamorro's coming out. Your Chamorro's showing. I know.
yeah,
You just didn't know.
I did not know.
I know.
But I want to understand how your meetings go, because it sounds like a party.
It pretty much is.
Well, for the people who are structured, we do have agendas.
We have rules.
Right? We have
Okay.
rules.
All
And
right, you have papers.
your first time is
Let me
just
see.
your first time is the training wheels are on. You're not expected to do anything when you come there.
Okay.
You're never going to be put on the spot except the icebreaker, okay? So like any party, you have to be introduced to the host and to the other guests. And you got to, get them feeling like they can go to the cooler and not have to ask
Mm-hmm.
Right.
or not have to wait, right? And that's what we want to do in a Chamorro home, right? In a local home.
Right.
Help people to feel as if they're not family, they're a guest.
Yeah.
And they're
Okay.
not guests, they're family. And
that's
so
what we do.
that experience brings people back.
Okay, so hey, this is cool, because what you guys do, like this is your agenda for your last meeting, or the one that's coming up.
Yeah.
So you role play.
Yes.
Well, let's
It's a guild of sorts.
Let's take a closer look at role play. It's
Okay.
not what you probably think.
Yeah.
So, it starts off very structured. in a
Okay, well,
way,
give me
like-
give me like this, when Toastmaster introduces meeting roles, and it's like a humorist.
We actually haven't had a humorist in a long time. All of our jokes kind of fall flat if it's.
Okay, guys need to step up your game on that one.
Yeah.
All right, general
what we're here for.
evaluator. What's that?
So throughout the night, everyone gives speeches, and there's a point in the meeting where it's time to kind of get your constructive criticisms in and
Okay.
praises.
Okay.
And so we have someone assigned to do that every meeting.
Okay, so these are all the people who are going to be
Yeah, they play
they're
different roles.
okay, so they're watching the person who is going to present. So
Yes.
every week, every time you have a meeting, there is somebody who's going to give a speech.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
there are actually two types.
how
so
fun is
One is
that?
the
And,
prepared
and
one.
every role is judged. I should say that.
Okay.
Every role is measured
Yeah.
Mhm.
so that you can see your improvement, your personal
Okay,
improvement,
okay.
as well as you can help your friends improve on and we'll talk
I
about
see
things
awe
like that.
counter
There you
and
go.
grammarian.
Yes.
So how many times you say awe in the course of the delivery?
Yes.
I'm all about that awe. I tell you, I'm like,
Ah,
do you know Travis Kaufman, the late
Yes.
Travis Kaufman?
God bless him.
God bless him. Used to have these long
Pauses.
pregnant pauses. You remember that? He was known
Yes.
for that.
He loves his pause.
His
the
pauses,
breath.
and you would think that they were like for the dramatic.
Oh, I thought. Yeah.
No, they
No.
weren't. It was for him to not say "ah."
Oh, I didn't. Know,
Yeah,
realize
the
that was-
reason why he made these pauses is because he did not want to be saying and losing breath and stupid words. He would rather have the silence so he could collect the next thought. So there were these long pauses, and I'd be like, "Bro, the off the air sign's coming off because your pauses
You're
are
trying to
so
figure
long."
out
But
what
that
the
was
meaning
his.
is.
The off thing was it's usually. I mean, we all obviously hear that there's
I call it
Oh,
the
I didn't
buffering
realize
effect.
Travis did it
The
for that
buffering
reason.
effect.
Yeah, I call it the
feel like I want
buffering.
to try that out.
just pregnant pauses.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
exact
just to
meaning.
collect because it's sometimes it can be you do it for drama,
Yeah.
and it just really it's faking that you're really thinking of your
'cause I
next
always listened to
line.
Travis, the late, and I didn't
Yeah.
realize that was what the pauses were. I thought
Yeah.
it was just.
No,
Yes.
that
breath,
was exactly what.
breath is so important.
Yeah.
Breath is so important. But to your point,
Okay.
ahs and ums and likes and so's,
Oh, yeah.
we count them up. And the reason
Oh,
why
that's
is
funny.
although they're kind of colloquial in our vernacular, you'll see them in other languages too. They are an uncomfortable, awkward pose and pause, and using the words just turn off, if you will, make people tune out.
Yeah.
If you say too much.
If
So
you
in
say it too many
addition to
times.
having these collective thoughts, and you probably like when you're doing these presentations, that you have your whole subject matter together, you know the right words, but there's a level of animation and there's also a level of acting, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Especially when
for
I,
the presentation.
yeah, maybe when I do give the PowerPoint presentations, there's a bit of theater involved, and which is unexpected for me because it's pretty much just trying to like sell an idea or information, and then you play it off as a performance sometimes. For
Doesn't it feel
PowerPoint
like it?
presentations, yeah.
Yes.
It feels like that.
So the expression in theater, breaking a leg, means to bow. And people would think, no, it means to fall on your face. No, it means to bow, to act as if every word, every pause, every sigh, every look is to help direct and help
It's
orchestrate.
deliberate. It's
yeah,
deliberate.
it's all deliberate. And it's not to manipulate people. It's really to
Yeah.
convey something sincere and authentic
You're
about what it
trying
is
to tug
you're.
an emotion, maybe
Yes.
like
Sure.
an emotion of happiness because of a certain way things segue.
Right.
And so it's really about that when
Yeah.
I do the presentations. But it's different when you do like a raw public speech because that now becomes an idea of you don't have slides behind you, you don't have any props. It's just
You just
on the
you and your
microphone.
knowledge.
Yeah, and
We
that
call it
becomes a role.
we call it breaking a lip.
Ooh, in the radio business?
Well,
It's
not
not
it's
breaking
not
lips,
generally
yeah.
known that way, but when I say goodbye in the morning to Kyle or to Polly Suba or to C when they're getting ready to go on the air, I always say, hey, break a lip.
Nice.
So, but it doesn't have the same meaning as break a leg. It's just
Yeah.
it's like break a lip
I didn't
because
realize
that's
it
what we do.
existed as a
Yeah,
thing.
but it doesn't. It's just
And so
just
it's really
something.
it's
But
really a fun experience. So
Yeah.
you asked earlier, or at least on the outtake, what's it like? I would go back to making family feel like guests and guests feel like family.
Nice.
So I say to people, you're not practicing public speaking. We're speaking in public now. Anyone within the sound of our voice is going to be affected
Yes.
and affected by what we say.
Absolutely.
And anyone who plays this later on is going to say, you know what? I remember that James Passion guy. And I remember how I felt. I said, I've always wanted to come. And they'll take us up on the offer. And they'll come out. Or at least at the party, they won't be the one to shy away from the toast for the family member. Or at the funeral, God forbid, sorry it sounds so morbid, to do the eulogy. Most people shy away from those kinds of things for fear that they'll screw it up, that they will actually break a leg or break a lip. And not realize they could really convey some really heartfelt,
that's
valuable,
that's absolutely
valuable,
true.
valuable.
In my
information.
family, I am eulogies are us.
See,
I am eulogy. I mean, I'm always the one that delivers the eulogy because I'm the most public of everybody who's comfortable behind a microphone. Everybody's like, nope, no, Either I'm going to cry my
number
way
one
through
fear.
it. Yeah.
Number one fear in all countries: public speaking. You know what the number 2 one is?
What?
Dying in public speaking.
It is, it's kind of
Oh,
up
wow.
there.
But it just feels, what I respect a lot about this is that every time you are doing this, there is a condition that there is judgment. It's hard not to go, oh God, he just, in this scope, but you're saying that,
That's gone. I would estimate in all meetings I've been to, and maybe you can sound off.
Elaborate.
You can see. I mean, as Toastmaster, you can see it disappear in certain times and after certain experiences that you see the audience, especially the newbies. You can see it almost taken away if in I think about 5 to 15 minutes in. If after 15 minutes you already know they were stone cold drugged there and maybe even put in the trunk, but you'll see the veil, the walls came down. I brought my young son, and by the way, we wanted to bring this up, who's attending UOG. I brought him to one of maybe the second meetings that I'd been to, and he was like, "Dad, I really like that. It felt comfortable," and he actually engaged. He's a little bit of an introvert, doesn't know he's an extrovert yet. That kind.
Yeah.
And he said, I think I'd like to come back again. I said, well, when you're ready and you can come.
and these are grown people with respectable positions in the community
From
that have that,
15 to 50,
yeah,
55.
yeah.
Yeah. They want to improve how they engage with folks. Maybe like James, in James' case, because they feel like they're in a rut and they need to help grow themselves personally, right? Personal development is huge. And in fact, you'll feel that right away. You'll feel that amongst people. Last night, we have a prompt that we use.
Okay.
We have a bowl that allows for us to do table topics. And it's the coolest part, it's the most fun thing. It's like being called up to the front of the class or your teacher calling you in the midst of your class. asking a question that you are not really
Mhm.
at liberty to say you know everything about, but guess what? You're going to wing it. And I know that you do this every time on the radio, right?
We fake it all the time.
Yeah.
Kidding.
And we get people to stand up there for what, two minutes
A
approximately?
minute and 30, but
Yeah.
2 minutes is good.
And there's a minimum amount of time that we time that you should be up there to speak. The idea is not to force you into an awkward situation, but to make the awkward situation feel so comfortable that you could talk on something like that. So go ahead and
Set
read it
your
for
mind
the,
on
for
a
the public.
definite goal and observe how quickly the world stands aside to let you pass. Napoleon
It's
Hill.
very thought provoking.
Yes.
Set your mind on a definite goal and observe how to. Okay, so what are you supposed to do?
So we
What do you end up doing?
so we decided to use just one prompt. Okay,
Mhm.
that's what we
That
call
night.
this
Yeah.
that night, and we had everybody come up, who wanted to and felt comfortable to speak. We had people that were, you could tell they were holding on to their seats, not wanting to be introduced, wanting to do the icebreaker, but did, and they just they got out of it.
So what? For example, what were some of the?
What does it
things that
mean to
be-
you when
Oh,
you
oh,
read it?
Okay, what does
Great.
it mean to you? So
And
what
then
do
you-
people say?
And then you espouse. Then they
Uh-huh.
espouse what they feel it's speaking to them about, and then they also relate. Remember
That's
what we
so
said?
yeah.
As an audience, they relate to the other individual who might have said something prior to them. So the spark. Think of it. It's the spark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you've got a roaring fire.
Well, that's true because you can only speak about what you know,
Yes.
right?
Right.
And it's easier, like I tell every guest that comes in, I'm going to only ask you questions that you know the answers to.
That's right.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be asking you about like how to, open a brain for surgery. Yeah, because that's not your, you know what I
No,
mean. But
area of
you've
expertise.
been so informative. I appreciate it. I didn't know that. I'm grateful for the lesson today. Thanks so much.
We have meetings coming up.
Okay.
One in particular we're calling an open house. It's a recruitment drive of sorts, but especially to expose, again, like my son, eulogy students.
Okay.
GCC students are welcome, adults, everyone. It's an open house. It's going to be at the
UOG.
UOG College of Public Administration and Business
Okay.
building. That's where the good president
Okay.
is housed.
What
along with
time?
her staff. That's going to be at 6:30 next week, Tuesday. I
Okay.
believe that is the
And then otherwise, it's
16th.
all right.
Yes.
Toastmasters.org.
And then our
All
regular
right.
meeting is every 2 weeks. So we just had one last night. It was off the chain.
Okay.
We
Well,
loved it.
Toastmasters.org too. Yeah, just find that. Adonis, thank you so much.
Yes.
James, it was such a pleasure meeting you. Thank you
Of
very
course.
much.
Thanks for
And
having
thank
me.
you for having a meal with us. We'll see you next time on Something to Talk About.